It's Thursday, the 19th of October, 2023, and welcome to the Water Action Platform. It's been 4 months since I last hosted this, and I have to say it's brilliant to be back. Now, that said, over the last few weeks, we've seen, once again, some of the darkest examples of humanity in and around the Middle East. Now, we recognize the pain, suffering, and tragedy that people are facing across that region. There are massive public health implications that will come from this, and maybe, just maybe, the Water Action Platform can get there when the time is right to help tell some of those stories. But in the meantime, we hope for peace, and we're thinking of everyone who is in harm's way and hoping that the leaders involved will have some wisdom and insight. But coming back to today we have a both sides count debate on whether people like me, namely people who are lifers in the water sector, is actually a good thing or not. We also have a tech showcase from Singapore on a new way of building membranes. And we're going to finish with a glorious Halloween-themed and finally. Now, thank you to all our sponsors for making this happen, but we're going to start by going to Australia, going to Melbourne, to hear from Jason Cotton, the new Program Director at Intelligent Water Networks, or the IWN as it's more commonly known as. Now, if you've not heard about the IWN, then listen very carefully to the following, because it's a model that I believe really should be adopted all across the world. Jason, it is wonderful to be connected with you. Thank you for taking the time out for this conversation. Can we start? Let's know a little bit about you and your background. So fill in the gaps there.
Sure. And yes, thank you so much for inviting me to talk today. It is an absolute delight. A little bit about me. I'm actually a physical organic chemist by training. And so the current issues around PFAS and those sorts of things I really understand intimately in the industry. I'm currently the Program Director of the Intelligent Water Networks here in Victoria, Australia. And prior to that, I was with Greater Western Water, so working for one of the water authorities here in Victoria. And one of my roles there was to actually bring together the operations streams in a merger between Western Water and City West Water to form Greater Western Water. And I was also the Innovation and Continuous Improvement Manager there as my substantive role.
Excellent. It's going to be important. That understanding of having been on the utility side is going to be really important in a minute when we talk about what IWN does and who your members are. But before we get there, I need to know a bit more about you. So when did you last cry?
Well, Piers, that was actually Saturday night. We were watching A Man Called Otto, a movie on Netflix with Tom Hanks. You may be familiar with it. And it really struck a chord. So, it did shed it. We both shed a tear, actually, my wife and I. So, that was the last time.
Anyone in the audience who's not watched A Man Called Otto, absolutely worth watching. All right. 3 words to describe you, please.
Passionate, driven, and generous.
Good.
They're the 3 words I'd choose.
And passionate, driven, and generous. Oh, I like generous. Well, I think we'll be the judge of that. Tell me a secret.
This is a funny one, actually. So my heritage is English, and my family comes from Twickenham and Staffordshire, and I collect Staffordshire English teapots from a potter called James Sadler. And so for the last probably 15 or more years, I've been actively buying them on eBay, and I've brought a number across on eBay from the UK. Yeah.
I've got this vision now of you sitting, sobbing at Tom Hanks movies, just got mail whilst tea, and then giving them away because you're generous. I like this. Right.
Yes.
It's enough of an insight into Jason Cotton. Tell me about IWN, Intelligent Water Networks. What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So Intelligent Water Networks was a strategy out of Water for Victoria. So essentially, the water industry here is, at the time, was 4 metros. It's now 3, because remember I talked about that merger. And the rest are regional water authorities. So when you've got a lot of, when you're trying to really drive innovation through the industry, if you're a small regional water authority, you don't have the resources or funds that you do if you're a metro water authority. And so the IWN was a mechanism to try and even the playing field. While all of the water authorities would make a contribution, but it'll be skewed towards innovation within the regionals. And so we work a lot with the regional authorities.
And do the metros and the regional authorities have their own R&D innovation teams? So they've got
Yes, they do.
this is a sort of mothership way of them together, getting peer-to-peer learning. And is it just within the state of Victoria?
It is, yeah. So we're quite unique. Water in Australia is state-based, so you actually have different structures depending on the states. So in two of the states, it's a single authority for the entire state. In Victoria, it's 18.
Okay, I got it. Right.
Yeah.
And when was it formed? Or how long has it been running? Is this a 2-year thing or 20 years?
No, not at all. That's an interesting question. No one really knows, but it's about 14 to 15 years. They didn't write. It was a classic on the back of a beer coaster in a pub. It was dreamed up, and no one bothered to put the date on the back of the beer coaster. So it's been around about 14 years. I've been here as the program director for 6 months.
Okay, I get that you're the new boy. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But I love that, the fact that we don't know when it started. It just happened.
It just happened, yeah. So we actually have 12 programs of work right across the challenges of the water industry, everything from circular economy through to pipeline intelligence, asset management, and a couple of our newest programs are around safety innovation and contaminants of concern. We also have one called Diversity and Inclusion Technology, which is an interesting program. So we look at actively for technologies that will assist people within the water authorities to do their jobs better. And so we're actively using at the moment an Xbox controller in the water industry. And that trial is actually going really well.
Well, I want to talk about, so that's a one, because we may come back to on the diversity and inclusion thing. We've done a couple of D&I reviews as part of the Water Action Platform over the last few years, bringing in expertise from all around the world, and it's a really hot topic. But that's not the one I want to talk about today. I want to hear about the program you're doing on biochar, because everybody's thinking about biochar, but you've got a very specific and a very local, if I've understood correctly, application. Can you give me some color to that?
Absolutely. So this is a technology that's called Pyroco. It's a combined combustion pyrolysis fluid bed system that was invented here in Victoria by a professor at RMIT University. And so,
what does that stand for?
It used to be the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, but now they just call it RMIT University because it's no longer a University of Technology, an Institute of Technology. It's a university.
Enough, yeah.
So so what this system is that you have a combustion chamber that's inside the pyrolysis chamber, and that creates the energy that fuels the process. You then pyrolyze biosolids to create biochar as the outcome, and it destroys PFAS. We've proven that, and also microplastics, and it leaves you with this beautiful char that still has a very high nutrient content that you can apply to agricultural land. Fun fact, we have made a prototype supercapacitor out of the biochar that's come out of that process, and that has application in laptop computers to basically do fast startups.
So I was about to say, when someone says capacitor to me, I'm thinking electronic goods. And I was thinking, that can't be right. I can't just have heard you saying you're taking sewage sludge, gasifying, pyrolyzing it, and creating a component that goes into electronic goods. But that is what you just said.
Yes.
Marvellous. Well, this is spectacular. That's spectacular. Now, we could spend hours talking about this, and we haven't got time, but maybe in the future we might have this company as a tech showcase. You're doing a trial? What scale?
We are, yes. So basically we did our first trial about 18 months ago, and that was a technical validation. Does this actually work? The answer was a resounding yes. And we showed that it destroyed PFAS and created this lovely char. Now we're doing a techno-commercial validation. So we've upscaled it. We've put about $1.4 million into redesign and automation of the unit, a lot more monitoring. And we're blending FOGO and and biosolids to create a functionalized biochar, so a higher carbon, more nutrients, etc.
FOGO is oils and greases.
No, so FOGO in Australia is food organics, green organics. So thank you for that clarification. Yes. So the municipal councils here in Victoria do take away organics, including food organics. You can put that into a special bin. That's taken away every week. and then we're partnering with councils to do that trial to provide those materials.
Excellent. Can you promise me that when that trial ends, you come back and you share with us the results, assuming you can?
I would love to.
Or
yes, no, I'd love to. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now, that sounds really interesting, and it's a wonderful example of how. Again, I love this idea of local utilities working together on
yes.
projects that they couldn't fund themselves. They wouldn't have the resources necessarily internally to do it themselves. So the IWN is the sort of...
It's a hub, essentially. It's like an innovation hub, yeah.
Now,
but
you've been the I like to call you the chief executive. In my head, you're the chief executive of IWN. But I get that the title is program director, but you're always going to be chief exec to me.
Thanks, Piers.
6 months in,
yeah.
What's the next few years got?
Without a doubt, it's all about adoption. So IWN has always trialed new technologies and innovative approaches, and that's been fantastic. But at the end of the day, we're not going to make a difference, we're not going to make a change, and we're not going to progress towards a circular economy without adoption. And so we have a real focus on adoption. And how we're achieving that is we're removing the barriers to adoption. So things like procurement processes, we're actually tackling that with our partners at Bigwater and through the Victorian government to actually smooth the way for small organisations like startups and accelerating organisations to get their technology on the roadmap for procurement by the water authorities.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
Brilliant. Well, the world's on fire and we have to do more together to stop.
Indeed.
Now, just before we finish, you let me get away with some cheeky questions. I've got a couple more to ask you before we finish.
Sure.
So,
fire away.
Embarrassing moment. I'm sure you haven't managed to get to the ripe old age of 32, 33, however old it is you are.
Thank you.
Some embarrassing moments. Tell me.
No. Okay, very quickly. I was in Rotary for almost 25 years. I was involved with the youth leadership program. Now, one of the things that people will tell you about me is that I'm not very detail oriented, so I don't listen to instructions very well. As one of the mentors on that program, I was ushered behind a stage at a conference, and apparently I was given some instructions. When you went on stage, we were presented with a scene, and we were supposed to manipulate the scene. And so there was these two actors in an embrace, and the brief was make this scene more loving, but I hadn't heard the instruction about manipulating the actors. So I simply joined them in the embrace on stage in front of about 1,000 people. And there was this absolute uproar of laughter, and I had no idea what I'd done.
Now,
and that was pretty embarrassing.
This goes out to an international audience. We may have to edit that section out.
It's all good. Look, free hugs. Since COVID, everyone needs a hug, Pierre, so I'm up for it.
Saying made it a little bit more loving.
Yes, I did.
Last question. I have a sense of it already. Jason, what makes you happiest?
Look, I'm probably at my happiest right now, actually. I got married again a few years back and dodged COVID to get married. We had a fantastic wedding. My kids have all left home. They're all doing their thing, which is fantastic. And I'm about to go on a holiday to Taiwan at the end of this week. So I couldn't be happier. So that's what makes me happy. Good food, good wine, good company.
You're a star. Thank you so much for taking time.
Thanks, Piers.
Bye-bye.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Cheers. Bye.
Now, wasn't that fun? We now come to our technology showcase section, and this week we are going to Singapore to hear from the entrepreneur Adrian Yeo, CEO for Aterra Water. Now, Adrian was previously at Semcor, and prior to that he worked at another tech company which ultimately listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. He is what many people would call a serial entrepreneur. Now, when we chatted before I spoke to him on this call, I asked him what his most embarrassing moment was, and he told me a very amusing story about how, being a young man in his 20s, he was helping deliver a water scheme in an orphanage in Indonesia that had following a hurricane. Now, he was this enthusiastic but inexperienced young man, and so having connected all the pipes together, he'd forgotten to include any glue. And so when the system was turned on, water spewed everywhere and the children laughed, probably at him as much as with him. Now, I love this story because it's a classic entrepreneur. There was a need. He felt he could help, he muscled in, he did the best he could despite not really knowing what was needed. And entrepreneurs like Adrian tread where others fear to go. And that's impressive stuff. So here is Adrian talking about Aterra Water.
Good day, everyone. My name is Adrian, and I'm both honored and excited to introduce my company as CEO and co-founder of Aterra Water. Founded a year ago as a spin-off from Nanyang Technological University, Aterra Water develops sustainable and value-driven water filtration solutions. We are fortunate to be supported by one of the world's top schools in material science, setting the stage for our flagship product, Clarity. This nano-composite hollow fiber membrane is our contribution to sustainability in water purification. Existing membranes are commonly made from engineering polymers using toxic solvent-based techniques. These methods not only harm our planet, but also inflate the technology's overall costs, which impedes widespread adoption. It is against this backdrop that Aterra Water's vision emerges, a future where membrane technology aligns with broader global objectives, specifically the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our work directly contributes to Goal 6, which is about ensuring access to water and sanitation for all, and Goal 12, which focuses on responsible consumption and production. We aim to make a substantial contribution towards achieving these goals by developing new materials and processes that are not only affordable, but also have a low carbon and environmental footprint. The challenge is twofold. How do we make it affordable? How do we make it eco-friendly? Current life cycle costs of membranes are 30 to 50% higher than traditional methods. Frequent membrane replacement contributes to this financial burden. So what drives up the cost of manufacturing these membranes? First, the raw materials. Engineering polymers like PVDF are in high demand. These polymers are not only used in water filtration, but in the manufacturing of high value-added products such as batteries. Second, let's discuss solvent disposal. The solvents used in fabricating these membranes are highly toxic. Their usage and disposal are highly regulated, adding yet another layer of expense. Replacement membranes also generate carbon emissions, wastewater, and solid waste, which are serious environmental issues. Now, on to what makes our approach so disruptive. Enter Clarity. Designed for an array of systems, both submerged and pressurized, Clarity integrates three core elements: nanotechnology, sustainable materials, and a solvent-free manufacturing process. Our use of nanotechnology enhances mechanical properties, providing a filtration system that's built to last. We've designed Clarity with an innovative module design and the ability to select different pore sizes, making it versatile for a range of applications from water to wastewater treatment. But what sets us apart is our environmental commitment. The materials used in Clarity are not only recyclable, our production process is also solvent-free, drastically reducing our carbon footprint. Clarity uses commodity polymers such as polypropylene and polyethylene as its base material. Most membranes made from such polyolefins are weaker than their counterparts, which are made from engineering polymers such as PVDF. However, we've re-engineered these polyolefins, fortifying them with nanocomposites to achieve robustness and durability. Our enhanced materials offer high chemical resistance against a broad spectrum of wastewater contaminants, ensuring efficacy even under harsh conditions. Plus, the large surface area of these membranes delivers high throughput, optimizing both space and resource use. In the municipal sector, our systems offer transformative solutions for treating surface water sources like rivers and lakes. In the industrial sector, Clarity is invaluable for a variety of applications, including F&B and pharmaceuticals. Before we close, I'd like to share a tangible example of our impact, a case study from Vietnam. Our client, a local water utility, faced a widely fluctuating raw water quality from a river source. The turbidity in the river water could increase from 20 to more than 300 NTU within a day. We developed the TerraStream system, which uses our Clarity membranes to specifically address this problem. Over a period of more than 2 months, we demonstrated that TerraStream could handle high turbidity levels without the need for pretreatment, with the minimal use of chemicals and the minimal production of sludge. We have recently concluded a letter of intent with the same utility to scale up the solution to provide clean water to 30,000 people. This case study doesn't just validate our technology, it validates our approach, our vision, and our commitment to solving water challenges sustainably. In conclusion, Aterra Water isn't merely offering another product. We are a solutions provider committed to a sustainable and responsible future. Thank you for your time and attention.
Aterra Water is doing a fundraise over the coming months, so if you're an investor or a corporate partner who wants to get involved, then let me know. Equally, if you're a utility or end user and you liked what you heard, let me know too, and I'll do the introduction. For our Both Sides Count debate this week, the topic is the water sector provides you with a job for life, and that's a good thing. Now, our two esteemed debaters for this thorny topic are Adam Lovell, Chief Executive for the Water Services Association of Australia, and Lilla Thompson, Chief Executive of British Water. Over to them.
The water sector provides a job for life, and that's a good thing? I don't think so. In fact, I completely disagree. We can't pander to all these stereotypes that the industry is subject to. The grey cardigan wearing, the leather patches, the comfy slippers. We're so much more than that. We're public health specialists. We're environmental practitioners. We're circular economy gurus. We're net zero zealots. It's probably the wrong word. But no, we've got to get out there. We've got to leave home. As proverbial teenagers, get out there for a gap year or longer. We've got to actually get out and about and into the economy. That's what the circular economy says. Let's get out there. So let's be truly part of the economy. That means no jobs for life.
I say, what's wrong with a comfy slipper? What's wrong with a grey cardigan? The water sector provides a job for life. I definitely think it does. When I landed in water 17 years ago, I never even knew the sector existed as a place where I could work. I mean, there are so many jobs you can do. I started working in international business development, and then I've moved to focusing on the UK market, technical matters. There's so much you can delve into: micropollutants, data and AI, wastewater treatment plant focus groups, SUDS. There's so many things you can think about, and so many ways in which you can transform people's lives. You can move around from place to place. You can be a lifer in a sector, but also move from job to job. So what's wrong with that? If the sector isn't a place where you can work for life, then what's the downside? You potentially lose highly skilled, highly experienced people who understand how to operate and maintain assets day in and day out.
Let's take it a step further. I once had one of my best board chairs at WASA, always used to, in fact, she's now moved on. See, there's another reason. There's a perfect example. But she always said the worst thing a monopolist can do is act like a monopolist. And I contend that that works for a job in the water industry as well. We all know what monopolists do, and this is kind of cheeky talking about the water industry, of course. Capture your regulators or do the best you can, overcharge for what you actually do, and be actually impervious to changes. So I think, let's think about that, how that applies for a job. You make best friends with your boss. You get paid more than what you do. You get a little bit lazy, and then you get impervious to innovation. It's another reason to say no. Get out there, move on, but by all means, come back.
I'm going to pick up on two things that Adam said. Did you notice his colleague came back? So she's going to be a lifer. She left, but then she realised that it's worth working in water and staying in water. If you're concerned that lifers don't have the appetite for change, then that's more about culture and the need to ensure that staff across the entire breadth of an organisation are encouraged to have innovation and doing the best every day at their core. So it's nothing to do with the fact that people become apathetic or they become bothered or they take things for granted. It's more about the culture from the top. If the culture from the top says you've got to be creative, you've got to create space for innovation, then that will ring true. You can still get people new into an industry and they can still adopt bad habits because they then start to be a bit like, complacent, not really bothered. It's really about culture. It's really about behaviours that you need to embed within your organisation to see change. And I think the only way that can happen is if you get lifers mixing and working with people who come into the industry who are fresh, and you get that diversity of thought. So,
in conclusion, water, as we know, is the most essential of essential services, but everyone takes us for granted. In a biblical sense, we need to get out there and spread the word. We need to learn new things ourselves. We need to encourage others to come in and teach us new things. And I'm sure for nearly all of us, water never really flushes from your system. Terrible pun, I know, but it's true. So by all means, come back with a fresh set of eyes but don't treat it as a job for life.
So I think we need to treat it as a job for life. And we need to consider that there's nothing wrong with seeing it as a job for life or as a job that you might want to leave and come back to, as Adam's colleague did. The water sector is fascinating. There's so many things to learn, so many different aspects of working within the water industry. You can work for a water company, a supplier, a manufacturer, an academic institution. There is so much to do. If you constantly bring in new talent without valuing those who are able to stay in the sector, you're going to be throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and you're going to be in deep waters.
Brilliant points from both sides. Now feel free to share your take in the chat by clicking on the triangle at the top right hand of your screen. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Lilla. As usual with this feature, we gave our debaters the topic and we told them which side we wanted them to argue, working on the assumption that intelligent, informed people can usually see both sides of the argument. Hence it's called Both Sides Count. Now with that in mind, this segment wouldn't be complete if we didn't hear what our lovely debaters really thought.
But what do I really think? Well, unfortunately, I'm going to take the easy option of sitting on the fence on this one. Too many times I've seen some from another essential service that happen to push electrons around come in and say, come on, you woke lot, move aside, let's make some money. This is really easy. And then they discover, oh, wow, it was a little bit heavier than what we thought. Oh, geez, it makes a mess when it spills around the place too, doesn't it? And geez, what do you do with these dirty electrons? We never had to deal with those. But when you're in the industry for the long term, when you're a lifer, like me, isn't the irony dripping? Then you're part of a team. Then you're part of a team with purpose. And right around the world, we're all rowing for the same team and mostly in the same direction. So I'm a lifer and I love it.
What's wrong with a dripping tap? If you're thirsty for water, then that trip is going to save your life. Look, I believe we need lifers. We need lifers to mentor, to encourage, to support all the new talent coming in. We need to appreciate the lifers because that's the only way we're going to make a massive change that we need to address the challenges in the sector. So thank you to Adam. Thank you to Piers. We need lifers.
And finally, with Halloween just around the corner, we need an appropriately themed story. So, with that in mind, I spoke to my colleague Caroline Wadsworth, Director for Strategic Partnerships here at ISLE. Caroline, wonderful to have you join us, especially for this, and drumroll, look, dun dun dun, Halloween, and finally. Let's get straight into it. Who are you?
I am Caroline Wadsworth. I'm Head of Strategic Partnerships here at ISLE Utilities in the UK.
And the way we're doing this now is we're trying to learn a little bit more about people. So give me 3 words to describe Caroline Wadsworth.
Okay, good question. So I think I'm collaborative. I am very strategic, and I'm happy. Actually, I'm a happy person.
Collaborative, strategic, and happy. Nobody ever says, well, I'm greedy, I'm filled with avarice, and selfish. Nobody ever says that, do they? Okay, you're happy. When were you happiest?
I will say on holiday when my children were all playing happy in a water park, my husband was relaxing in the sun and it was just peace and everybody was relaxed. It was bliss.
So you were happiest when your children and husband were nowhere near you, basically. That's what you're saying.
All right. We could summarise it as that, yes.
I quite like this spooky picture. All I've done is turn a light on. I feel like I'm properly home. Well, you've got a wonderful water-relevant Halloween story to tell. Please tell it.
Okay, so my story is about a new process called resomation, which is a water alternative to flame cremation. So it's a bit icky. It's not everybody's cup of tea.
Resomation as opposed to...
Resomation.
Resomation as opposed to cremation. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So it uses water and a weak alkaline solution, and it speeds up the natural decomposition of the body. So it decomposes over a matter of hours rather than months and years. And you're left with a skeleton that can then be dried and crushed as you would have. So the family receive the ashes as you would do in normal flame cremation. But the ashes are really white because they've not been burnt through that process. It's far more friendly to the environment, but much less energy intensive. There's no atmospheric emissions. But the big question was at the time, can we introduce this and get all of these units to have trade effluent permits? And to do that, what impact will it have on the sewers? So we had to do a full-scale trial with five bodies, which were all very respectfully treated, but 3 were cadavers, 2 were donated through science, and take them through the full cycle and test the resulting liquids that come from the end of that process to understand would they have a negative impact on the sewage system or the water treatment process when it gets to the sewage treatment works. And really, really happy to say that the conclusion was, no, it doesn't. And it's a great alternative to flame cremation. And that is now a commercially available solution in the UK.
I can adopt, I can elect for that to be how I'm going to go.
Yeah, you can do it. So the UK, we could call ourselves fast followers. It was already established in the US and Canada and a couple of other European countries, but it's definitely still breaking barriers and bringing it to the UK.
We go out to 110 countries, so there's got to be at least 105 where I can say, you heard it here first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Way to get cooked after you die. Caroline, that is a spectacular story. Thank you for sharing. And can you share who you were working with at the time you did that, or is that a bit secretive?
That's a bit secretive. Resumation is a known company, so you can look them up on the internet and it will take you to their webpage. And they are
working as a...
No, I was an independent part of that assessment to understand how impactful that process was on the sewerage network and the wastewater treatment plants.
We now come to the end of this month's broadcast. I once again thank all our contributors and sponsors. Next month, we'll be going south, with Brazil and South Africa being the topics that we're going to cover, and it will be hosted by the fabulous Dr. Chantal Coetzee. Until then, keep asking questions, keep sharing, and keep safe.